What is going on in Ireland? The back-breaking increase in housing costs, the alarming influx of immigrants, everything seems to be falling apart in Irish cities. The Irish Sun recently reported a startling trend. In most Irish cities, housing prices are climbing at about £1,000 every single week, leading to a staggering 35% rise since the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, the nation has been taking in over 149,000 immigrants annually, marking the highest figure in 17 years. With the property market uncontrollable and the living costs climbing, is living in Ireland becoming impossible?
And moving to Ireland, where thousands of people marched on Ireland's parliament in the latest angry protests over housing shortage in the country.
Buying a home in Ireland has become increasingly out of reach for many. The dream of owning a house, which once felt attainable for the average person, is now a distant aspiration for many young adults and first-time buyers. In 2024, the average house price in Ireland soared to €355,000, marking an 8.7% increase compared to previous years. This sharp rise in the cost of housing has left many wondering how they will ever afford a place to call their own. The situation is even more dire for first-time buyers, who make up more than half of the mortgage market at 57%. The average mortgage required to buy a house has now reached €313,547. This is an enormous burden for households and individuals trying to get onto the property ladder. The high inflation in property prices, coupled with the increasing income gap, makes it almost impossible for many to acquire even a mortgaged home. The challenge becomes even more daunting in areas such as Doon Lougheer and Wicklow. Potential buyers in these regions may need up to 21 years to save for a deposit. In Doon Lougheer, the situation is so extreme that individual buyers may need an eye-watering 88 years to save up just for a down payment. A severe decline in housing supply has further worsened the inability to afford a house. There has been a reported decline in housing completions by nearly 7% since 2023. That's massive. The decrease in supply is somewhat concerning because it shows that the building sector isn't keeping up with the high demand for houses. With fewer homes being built each year, the existing stock becomes even more competitive, pushing prices even higher. But what is the root cause of this? Ireland's population is changing rapidly, with a surge in immigration placing new demands on the country's resources. In 2024 alone, over 98,700 people made their way to Ireland, marking a notable 5% increase from the year before. Yet, amid this growth lies a pressing challenge for newcomers: the staggering cost of living. As many seek a place to call home, the reality of soaring housing prices hits hard, raising urgent questions about the country's future and the struggles of those trying to find their footing. Take a look at this. Statistics show that a third of foreign-born citizens spend more than 30% of their income on rent, compared to just 9% of those born in Ireland. This creates a divide between immigrants coming into the country and native citizens in terms of their financial well-being and general quality of life. The increasing population in Ireland has also put a lot of pressure on the already saturated Irish housing market. With more people coming into the country, housing demand rises exponentially. However, the housing supply has not been able to catch up with the rising demand. This imbalance has only helped fuel the crisis even more, with many people being unable to find affordable housing. The influx of immigrant workers has also created significant pressure on primary public services, such as health and education. More people would require access to healthcare services, schools for their children, and basic social amenities, all of which are becoming more difficult to provide in a system that is not designed to handle such rapid population growth. While immigration has undoubtedly contributed to Ireland's economic boost, it has also raised concerns surrounding the allocation of resources and the capacity of public services to handle such a rapid increase in population. According to the Central Statistics Office, the population of Ireland was estimated to be over 5.5 million as of April 2024, and this figure is expected to keep rising in 2025. But for how long will this go on? Even for the locals, can they keep up with the rising cost of living? Another factor that has made living in Ireland almost impossible is the alarming surge in the cost of living. The cost of living in Ireland is no longer just about finding affordable housing. Access to essential services such as healthcare, education, and everyday goods is becoming increasingly expensive. In recent years, Ireland has continued to rank as one of the most expensive countries in the European Union, with household expenses going up 42% higher than the EU average. This sharp increase in costs has made budgeting almost unrealistic for Irish families, especially those already paying extremely high prices for their housing. Have you noticed the surge in healthcare costs lately? Even with public funding, many people are finding themselves shelling out more from their own pockets. Public hospitals are grappling with unprecedented waiting lists, and some patients are left waiting weeks or even months for necessary procedures. A 2022 report from the Irish Medical Organization highlighted that the average waiting time for routine surgery has surged to 19 months, a jump from 14 months the previous year. This escalating delay is not just a statistic, it's a pressing reality for those urgently in need of medical care. What does this mean for our healthcare system and the individuals caught in this web of waiting? In addition to this, the cost of education has also been a growing burden on many Irish families. Although primary and secondary education remains free in most parts, families still often find themselves paying for additional costs, such as school uniforms, books, extracurricular activities, and transport. An average family with children in primary and secondary school now spends between €1,500 and €2,800 on educational expenses alone. This burden seems to fall the most on lower income families, where one or both parents might be struggling to make ends meet due to the rising costs of living. In cities like Dublin and Galway, the cost of food, fuel, and transportation has steadily increased in the past 2 years. A report from the Central Statistics Office showed that the Consumer Price Index at the start of 2024 was at an average of 4.1%. Some items, such as dairy and meat, increased by about 10%. Not only that, the rising costs of petrol and diesel are making it more expensive for many Irish citizens to get to work, reducing their disposable income even further. This all means that for many Irish families, their income simply isn't stretching far enough. Although the average salaries of workers have seen some growth in the years after the UK's exit from the EU, the impact and value keep failing to keep up with the pace of inflation. A report shows that in 2024, the average annual wage in Ireland for most full-time workers was set at about €38,600. However, with living expenses growing every year, many citizens struggle to survive. This means less space for savings, fewer holiday vacations, and an overall decline in the standard of living. For others, the cost of staying in Ireland has become a real daily struggle, as exorbitant housing expenses, coupled with inflated prices of basic commodities and services, are forcing growing numbers of individuals to make tough choices. However, in all of this, what is the Irish government doing? Any measure in place in the wake of these struggles? The policies enacted by the Irish government regarding housing and immigration in recent years have been a critical factor in the country's current crisis. While some of these policies were created to address the issue of affordability and economic growth, they have continually failed to deliver the needed results that would lead to a stable and fair society for immigrants and citizens alike. As the housing crisis deepens and immigration pressures continue to build, there is growing consensus that reforms are long overdue. One of the key policy decisions that has resulted in the current situation was the deregulation of the housing market during the 1980s. The government at the time felt that if it lifted the controls on housing and encouraged more private investment, the housing market would thrive. However, this decision has been considered a significant error due to recent developments. The deregulation policy allowed large-scale institutional investors to enter the housing market and buy more properties as financial assets. Most of these investors, who are out to seek financial profit from rents and sales, often leave these properties vacant for extended periods, rather than renting them out to individuals in need of them. This practice, which is known as the financialization of housing, seems to have driven up the price of houses and rents. In response to the growing crisis, the government has attempted to address this problem in the past with measures such as rent controls and new taxes on purchasing properties in bulk. While these efforts have seen some results, they have not been enough to positively impact prices. In fact, rent controls have often led to more consequences, such as a reduction in the availability of rental properties. This is because landowners find ways to make it more profitable to sell their properties or leave them vacant, rather than rent them out at below market rates. Rents in the capital, Dublin, rose by an average of 5.2% in just 2024 alone, and similar increases are expected to be observed across other major cities in Ireland. Another failure on the part of government policy has been the lack of affordable housing supply. Despite numerous promises by successive Irish governments to build more homes, the rate of construction has been inadequate overall. The target for new house construction in 2024 was approximately set to 40,000 units, but fell short of that number by 7%, with only about 30,000 new settlements completed. Given the devastating state of things, the Irish are moving out to other countries in droves. Countries like Australia, Canada, and the USA have become the favorite destinations for most Irish emigrants. This is because these countries offer better job opportunities, especially affordable living conditions. In 2024, approximately 12,500 Irish citizens reportedly moved to Australia alone, with many opting to take advantage of available skilled migration programs. But then, what will happen to the country if this trend continues? How long can a country survive when even its people can't afford to live in it? If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.